Okay, so we're on page 310 of Sri Sarada Devi and her divine play. And she, right now, Ratu is rather sick and not doing well and didn't want to stay in Calcutta. So is now in the villages where there's not really anyone there to no nearby doctors and whatnot. And she had asked for some ice, and so mother sent one of the monks to give named Barada to get some ice to put it on her head, which is very important because someone today doesn't like that at all. So you see here on the top of the page, 310. Meanwhile, Kali Kumar came from Jairambati and said to the mother, "Sister, you're putting ice on the head of a pregnant woman on the advice of a mad woman? I hope nothing bad happens to her because of the ice." You got to love how she phrased that. You're putting ice in the head of a pregnant woman on the advice of a mad woman. Like, what are you doing? All right, so the mother then stopped putting the ice on Radu's head. Now Kali Kumar suggested, "Sister, you don't understand. This is not a disease. If it were, the Calcutta doctors would have cured it. I think she is possessed by a demigod or a ghost." That's a leap there. "Why don't you bring the famous tantric sadhu from Shushnagar?" Shushnagar? Anybody know how to pronounce? That's a new place for me. I haven't heard of it. Sush, Sushnegere. No corrections? All right. Shushnagar it is.
I think Sushen. I think Sushen Nagar maybe. Sushen.
Shushnagar?
Sushen. Sushen is Sushen.
Sushain.
Sush. Yeah.
But it's Shushne. It's Shushne. It's Sushne.
Oh, okay. Sushen. Yep. Yep.
All right. So we'll just say Shushnagar and get his opinion. Holy Mother agreed. The next day, she sent Brahmachari Bharada to Jairambati, and Kali Kumar accompanied him to Shushnagar. Kali Kumar told the tantric sadhu everything and offered a special worship to his deity. The tantric sadhu threw some mustard seeds on the altar and said that he had received the command to go to Kualpara the next day. All right, so he's going to come along. When the tantric sadhu arrived, the mother bowed down to him, described Radu's condition, and fervently begged for his help. He considered the case to be a ghostly affair, and he prescribed a remedy: sesame oil from 2.5 pounds of black sesame seed, fish oil from a carp weighing 40 pounds, wow, and various kinds of herbs and plants boiled in an iron cauldron over the fire of dry ox dung fuel. The substance produced was to be rubbed on the patient's body, who must also wear an iron amulet. The tantric sadhu took 5 rupees from the mother and left. Holy Mother was unable to attempt this remedy, however, because those ingredients were impossible to obtain. Yeah, so this is an interesting, could be a rather interesting conversation to have somebody that knows things about this. When I read them, I'm not much into ghosts and demons and things of that sort. I have to say that given to my own devices before I became a monk, I didn't believe in them at all. Although I would run up from the dark basement in a panic sometimes, even not believing in them. But, I keep my mind open to these things these days. It's like this world is a very big world. And just because I haven't had a direct experience of it, in no way means that it doesn't exist or that it doesn't live. And even further, that it's not a valid description of something that I might also think but would describe in a very different way. You know what I mean? It's like when I look at the ancients and the way that they wrote, we sometimes think that, oh, they weren't as intelligent as we are. They didn't know as much. But I think that their systems that they used, the arrangements and the relationships between the things in their systems, were very close to how we describe the universe, but in a completely different context, in a completely different way of talking about it. But that there was a lot of experiential truth in it. And so when I see things like this, I'm careful not to judge it. I don't toss it out or make fun of it, but I have a special place in my mind where those things sit. And part of my reason for really opening my mind to it was that Ramakrishna had some of those experiences. Vivekananda had some of those experiences. And while I haven't, when I first started studying these things, I would have made fun of it. I would have thrown it out and thought that's ridiculous. But then when I ran into talk with Sri Ramakrishna, mentioning them, I suddenly got very quiet because I have a deep respect for him and a deep respect for his insights. And he would have no motivation for misleading anybody on those things. So, this is that sand and sugar situation. Everything in the scripture may not be for you in the moment, right? Just some of it may not seem to apply to you. Some of it may not make it past your own sensors, your own belief systems, and whatnot like that. And so we set it aside. We don't throw it out. We set it aside for the moment because there's a possibility at some point in the future, your mind will be in a different condition. You'll have a different set of experiences or additional experiences. And at that point, that piece of information might be very valuable to you. And so this is part of the practice in Vedanta is keeping an open mind, not judging things prematurely, but reading them carefully, paying attention to them. And if they're not something you want to accept, then you just set them aside over on the side of your sewing table. And then when you're working on another project, you may pull it over and use it for that project kind of thing. But to maintain an openness and a respect for these different ways of thinking in the world and the different experiences that others have had. So these ingredients were impossible to obtain. One day, Holy Mother engaged a Chanda, a medium, who also prescribed various kinds of medicines. They were applied to Ratu with no effect. Frustrated, Mother said, I am praying to all the gods and goddesses, but no one is answering my prayers. It will happen according to providence. The master is the only protector. Nalini became jealous that her aunt was spending so much money on Ratu, and she was always quarreling with Shurabala. You see, this is what ego does. This is what ego does, and not to pick on Nalini here, but just it's a good way to look and see exactly when can you know that jealousy is, or not jealousy, but egoism has entered into you, that you're identifying yourself with your ego. Jealousy is a big one. When you see somebody else getting something good, getting the attention of the Divine Mother, and that bothers you, that's egoism. And if that happens to you, don't think about the other person. Your task has to be now immediately to fix that boundary problem that you have, that you are not able to rejoice in someone else's good fortune. You're not able to be glad that somebody else is getting the attention that they need. You don't have the right attitude. So when jealousy pops up like that, or when you even start paying attention to things like that, it's a big time for you to sit down and go inside and remember that everyone is one without a second. Remember that we all share the same divine nature within. Remember that person getting that good fortune is you getting that good fortune. So we can be happy with when others get something that we think is a treasure or something that we think is positive. We can enjoy them having it because we share in that. We see our own happiness at getting that, so we project it on them and share in their happiness for getting it. And what a better place this world would be if we could practice that. So be careful. These are signs of egoism. Jealousy that her aunt was spending so much money on Ratu, and this constant quarreling. Constant quarreling is also a lack of flexibility. I was listening to an NPR show 2 days ago, I think, on mental health. And the woman was saying that one of the best signs of someone who is mentally healthy is their ability to be flexible, their ability to accept different conditions and circumstances. and to not be bothered by that, not to be bent out of shape by that. So in a conversation, they can kind of flow with the conversation. They're not insisting on their way. They're not poo-pooing everybody else's advice. They're not making fun of anyone. They're not repeating themselves over and over again, trying to get their way. So that open mind, that flexible mind, the mind that is able to accept lots of different ways of doing something, that's a sign of mental health. That's a sign of a lack of egoism, which would be mental health. So not having that egoism, so not quarreling all the time, not insisting that you have the only best way to make dal, or that you are the only one that knows how certain things are done in the shrine, or certain things are done in the worship hall, or the center, it's done like this. I remember one time showing someone, I was a Swami and I was in my robes even. And I was walking somebody through the building who was there for the first time. And because they had come in with their shoes on, I didn't ask them to take their shoes off. And I showed them through the whole monastic area. We didn't go into the shrine. Going into the shrine, I would have asked them to take their shoes off. But we opened the door and looked into the shrine. And I described everything to them. And while I was doing that, this devotee, whom I had not met, comes up and starts scolding me. What are you wearing shoes in the shrine, in the temple for? You shouldn't have your shoes on in the temple. Well, that's not a rule at the Vedanta Center of Greater Washington, D.C. You can wear your shoes in the building. Many people don't because it's their culture or their comfort not to, but there is no rule like that. And, that stuff goes on quite a bit. People who come to the temple think that their rules are the temple rules. Their comforts are the temple comforts. And that is not the case, And so check out that egoism. Be careful, because that's what starts troubles. When you and your ego think that you know the rules, or think that you have the rules, or that you are right, and you start presenting them, when in fact, that's not the case. And so be careful about that. It causes trouble quite a bit. So Nalini was jealous, and she was always quarreling with Shurabala. This family squabble was ruining the mother's mental peace, okay? That is the problem with egoism. You disturb the mental peace of everybody else. You disturb the process of everybody else. You get in the way. You become troublesome. So egoism, this sense of me and mine, and this need of the ego to constantly build itself up and to place itself on a perch slightly above everybody else, and being willing to think and say almost anything to do that and to maintain that, that's a big problem. And we need to become sensitive when we see that beginning to engage within us. Anytime the hair in the back of your neck stands up, that's a good sign that the ego is being enacted by somebody. Or if you feel that flare inside of, needing to confront something or say something in a very strong way, that's usually a sign that your ego is being engaged. When your heart rate goes up, when you get a little short in the conversation, you start speaking a little bit more directly, that's a sign that egoism is starting to come up. And if you don't catch it when it's coming up, the signs that you've been engaged with it is after you've had a conversation with somebody, you feel a certain unease, a certain feeling of like, oh, should I have said that? Or, was I too loud? Or, something about it makes you uneasy. And so these are all signs of egoism, signs that you weren't discerning. And egoism, if you don't do a practice where you're aware of your inner world, you won't catch it in time. Because egoism is one of those things that slips up silently, attacks, and then just hangs out there as an invisible reality. And so it's hard to get out of, because it ties very closely with all of those very harsh feelings, the arrogance, the pride, the self-worth. Oh, let me get everybody muted here. Oh, muted. All right, mute all. So everybody can undo your muting as you need or as you want. We just don't want to have any phone ringings or anything. So egoism is a thing to watch and to become aware of how it feels when that egoism begins to rise in yourself, because you can stop it if you can catch it before it actually takes control, before it actually invades the mind. You can catch it and you can let it go. So this is part of the reason that we do a lot of our practice. It's not just to reach enlightenment, as it were. It's to become sensitive to the workings of the inner world, to become familiar with the inner world, so that you can find yourself in there, know which actually belongs to you. Those thoughts coming from love and wisdom and around your being, those are you. Thoughts of jealousy, thoughts of anger, thoughts of all those vices, thoughts of being right, being annoyed, all of those things are egoism. And so to become familiar with your inner world so that when those things begin to arise, you can catch them before they get to your mouth. There's a wonderful song that I grew up singing in church called Angry Words. It went something like, angry words, oh, let them never from the tongue unbridled slip. May the heart's best impulse ever stop them ere they soil the lip. Love one another, thus says the Savior. Children, obey the Father's blessed command. It's hard to stop once those start coming. I get put into a whole state of mind. But those angry words, don't let them ever soil your lips. Only let the heart's best impulse, which is your nature, only let those words come out. So the family squabble was ruining Mother's mental peace. Finally, Nalini took her sister Maku, who was also pregnant, and left for Jairambati by palanquin. In the evening, Mother lamented, Nalini did not bring Neda to me for my blessing before she left. Nalini's mind is full of jealousy and getting more impure day by day. She sent Brahmachari Bharata to Jairambati every day for news of them. Again, we see how that egoism had blinded Nalini, and she didn't respect the relationship between Maku and Mother because of her jealousy. And so you see how those errors in ourselves, that egoism, it spreads. It makes a cascade of trouble in them. Again, to just be careful, and how Nalini's mind is full of jealousy and getting more impure day by day. That's what happens when it's not dealt with immediately. When you don't catch it in yourself, it becomes a state of mind. It becomes a way of thinking. Mother tells us that when she says, it's part of that same lesson when she says not to find faults in others. In that same lesson, she mentions this, that if you get in the habit of noticing faults, or you get in the habit of saying rude things, that actually takes root in your mind, and you actually become that type of person. So this is important to be aware of. In April, news reached Holy Mother that Mandakini's mother was seriously ill in Nabasan, and there was no one to look after her. Holy Mother brought her to Kualpara and engaged a doctor for treatment, but the old lady passed away within a couple of days. Meanwhile, Neda, Maku's son, had become sick with fever and a sore throat. The mother asked Brahmachari Bharata and Dr. Vaikuntha, later Swami Maheshwarananda, to go to Jairambati the next day. You see how, isn't this wonderful? You see how Mother, it's not just words that she sees everyone as her child. I mean, look at how she's like running an entire community here based on her love and concern for all of her children. She's getting doctors to go see people and patients to come from other places, and brahmacharis to take supplies to this person, and acknowledging this problem going on here and talking to this person about finding a solution for it. You see that her work is just constantly for the betterment of everyone around her. And it's a labor. It's not just a mindset. She's not just thinking, oh, the world's all my children. This is showing in her life. This is what she is. She is the Divine Mother. And so she's aware of everybody's troubles and she's hearing of everybody's problems. And she's constantly thinking of solutions, constantly thinking of ways to be helpful. It's just amazing if you look even just the last couple of pages that we've read, the number of people that she has kind of tasked with these things to make sure that everybody's getting what they need is just beautiful. So the mother asked Brahmachari Bharata and Dr. Vaikunta, later Swami Maheshwarananda, to go to Jairambati the next day. Vaikunta diagnosed Neda's illness as diphtheria, a serious disease. They returned to Koalpara and reported to the mother that the boy needed an injection that was available only in Calcutta. The mother sent Bharata to the nearest telegraph office in Arambagh, a distance of 14 miles. This poor Bharata, this is like over 40 miles that he's walked this week for all at the bidding of the mother to take care of other people. That is a great example of what a brahmachari is right there, So mother sent Bharata to the nearest telegraph office in Arambagh, a distance of 14 miles, to send a cable to Sharadananda. The Swami immediately bought the injection and sent it through Bhupeshwar Sen, who reached Jairambati at 9 o'clock in the morning. When he arrived, however, it was too late, and the injection did no good. Neda died at 5 o'clock on the 20th of April, 1919. That night, the mother cried and lamented for Neda. Again, the heart of the mother. And this is where we see that detachment is not the ideal. There is a proper time to be attached. But when you are attached, you need to have a power of detachment that matches your power of attachment. So that when the situation moves on, mother, you watch, she'll just remove the mood from it. She'll accept it and place her mind above it and go forward. That's detachment. But we see this sign of attachment here in the Divine Mother, that she attaches, because that's how you express care. That's how you express love with somebody in need or somebody who is suffering. The next morning, the mother made a remark about Neda. This boy was a fallen yogi in his previous birth, or a great soul. A little karma was left that he had to finish in this life. This was his last birth. Seldom does one see such good tendencies in such a little boy. He would collect some plumerias every day and worship me by putting them on my feet. The mother talked about Neda for a few days and sometimes shed tears for him. One day, Dr. Prabhakar Mukhopadhyay said to her, "Mother, this world is full of suffering." Indeed, there is no escape since I am already in it. Could you tell me how I can have peace? I am disgusted with this worldly life. The mother consoled him. You are right, my son. There is no peace in worldly life. The master exists, and he will surely protect you. It is extremely troublesome to live in this world with relatives. Look, I made a big mistake arranging Radhu's marriage, and now I am suffering. In Koalpara, sometimes the mother would feed Radhu, but Radhu spat the food out at her. One day the mother was irritated and said to Sarada, "Look, my child, know this body," pointing to her own, "to be a divine body. How much abuse can this body tolerate? Can any human being bear so much torture? Only a divine being can bear it. These relatives are tormenting me. This time, if the master somehow cures Radhu, I will withdraw myself. Look, my child, as long as I am alive, they will not know my real nature. They will understand it later." So we see just mother's, because she was so unassuming, and because of her total lack of egoism, and because of her constantly doing things behind the scenes for everyone's good, people took advantage of her. People thought that, they could treat her any way they wanted to. She was a familiar. They didn't have to show these higher respects toward her. And mother, finally just has enough. Says, look, this body is holy. This body has realized God. This body has served its purpose. How much more do you think it will bear of your abuse? It's like, this isn't proper. So she was just reminding them. Radu's prolonged neurasthenia led doctors to believe that an operation might be necessary at the time of her delivery. Sharadananda arranged for Dr. Vaikuntha and Sharala, who had studied nursing, to be present during the delivery of Radu's child. Someone suggested the need for a specialist at Radu's delivery, but the mother said, "Dogs and jackals live in the jungle. Do they not give birth to young ones there?" I did not expect mother to say something like that. That is hilarious. And it's a good tempering. It's a good. There actually, I can think of times when this needed to be said. Because sometimes, especially in the treatment of a swami, the devotees will go way past the nth degree in trying to help them, or in trying to cure them, or in trying to fix them in some way. And it just gets out of hand. Swami Prabhutananda, I saw that in his last days. We had an entire kitchen cabinet full, packed to the brim of all different kinds of powders and supplements and liquids and gels and vitamins and spices, that everybody coming and saying, "Oh, Maharaj, take a little bit of this every day. Oh, Maharaj, take some of this. It'll make you feel better. Oh, Maharaj, when I had that problem, I got cured this way." And, of course, it's any number of different remedies. And Swami Prabhupada was always very respectful, because he mentioned Sri Ramakrishna, who's our ideal, would take medicines, and would follow people's recommendations. But Swami Prabhupada was like, "But how many can I try? There's how many of these medicines should I even try?" And so many of them he would just touch to his head out of respect and then put them in the cabinet, and that's where they would stay. And some of them also, he had this habit, which I was a little humored by. He would take it once, and if it did something for him, he would keep taking it. If it didn't do anything, then that would also end up in that cabinet there. But this tempering of reason with this emotional, bhaktis can use this quite a bit. This is why Thakur says about jnana, about the path of non-duality, Advaita Vedanta. He says to people who practice devotion, tie that knowledge of one without a second, tie that Advaita knowledge in the corner of your dhoti, put it in your pocket. In a Western sense, he's saying keep it in your pocket, because that will prevent you from being a fanatic. Oh, my way's the best way, my way's the only way, my savior's the best savior, my savior's the only savior. Vivekananda, in his book on bhakti yoga, that's one of the first things he says in there, is that the danger of the path of bhakti yoga is you get too emotional about things. You get too emotional, and you begin to think that your way is the only way, your way is the best way. And so, the remedy for that is to understand that ultimately all of us are one without a second. All of us are one without a second. All of us are your beloved. And so don't start these exclusionary ideas that happen when bhakti or devotion mixes with egoism. As we can see in the world, that is a horribly destructive force. When egoism mixes with your religion, mixes with your spiritual practice, that is where things explode. That is where things go crazy. Religions that have a God of love behind them and teach love as their highest ideal become so cruel, become so vindictive, become so hateful of one another. And it's not a problem with the religion. It's the problem with the devotees being egotistical about their religion. That's what causes the problem. And this is why we practice. This is why it's important that we spend that time as often as we can every day with the divine beloved, so that we can know what is egoism and what is self, and we can protect ourselves from the delusion, and we can be people of love. Jesus said about his disciples, "You'll know that they are my disciples by their love." That's how you will know. And that's true of every religion, of every religious person. It should be true. The primary thing people know about you is your love. That's what it should be. If it's not like that, we just keep practicing. But certainly, it's something that needs to be front and center of our life as human beings. I was going to say as practitioners, but just human beings. Let's just make everybody responsible to it, not just a group. You know. Interesting too that she agrees there is no peace. There is no peace in worldly life. There's just going to be a lot of strife. And so Mother accepted that. She said, yes, this is the way it is. This is that life. She kept her mind flexible, kept that mind open, and went forward. But here, she had already made arrangements with the doctors, and then Sarada Nanda arranged for the doctor, and then she arranged for some people who had nursing education available to them to be there. And then someone says, oh, we have to get a specialist now. And Mother's like, okay, that's enough. Dogs and jackals can give birth to their young in the jungle with none of these here. Certainly, we can do the same. Let's not go too far. Let's not pack the cabinet with medicines. On the 9th of May 1919, Radu gave birth to a son in the natural way without much difficulty. It was a great relief to the Holy Mother. The boy was named Banabihari, on account of being born in the jungle, the Vana of Kolpara. His pet name was Banu. On the 23rd of July, 1919, Holy Mother arrived with her household to Jairambati. Radu was very weak. She could not stand, but crawled about. Sometimes she had to be forced into bed. Now her eccentricity reached its height. According to custom, when Banu Bahari was 6 months old, Holy Mother arranged Banu Bahari's rice feeding ceremony, the Annaprashan, and fed many people. At dawn, Holy Mother sang to Banu just as Mother Kaushalya of the Ramayana did, while rousing her son, Prince Rama, from sleep. Here's how it goes. It is morning. Awake, my child. You who are merciful to the gods, men, and sages, bathe now and offer the gods cattle, elephants, gold, and betel nuts. Brahmachari Bharata wrote in his diary about Holy Mother's ordeal with Radhu during this period. Radhu's baby was now 6 months old, but still Radhu could not stand up because of weakness. To make things worse, she became addicted to opium for her stomach trouble. Holy Mother, too, of late had not been well. She was having occasional attacks of fever. She tried to wean Radhu from her opium habit, but Radhu was adamant. One morning, Holy Mother was cutting vegetables when Radhu came for opium. Holy Mother understood her intention and said to her, Radhi, you have had enough of this. Why don't you stand up? It is impossible for me to take care of you anymore. For your sake, I have given up my devotion and everything else. Can you tell me how I can possibly meet all of your expenses? At these words, Radhu lost her temper, picked up a big eggplant from the vegetable basket, and threw it at Holy Mother's back with great force. It struck her hard, and she arched her back in pain. Her back became red and swollen. Looking at a photograph of the Master, Holy Mother prayed with folded hands. Look at this reaction. This is amazing. Lord, please forgive her misdemeanor. She is not sane. Then she took the dust of her own feet and put it on Radhu's head and said, Radhi, the Master never hurt me, not even with a rude word. And you torture me so much. How can you understand where I really belong? Simply because I live with you all, you do not think anything of me. Radhu burst into tears. Holy Mother continued, Radhi, if I get angry with you, there will be no one in the 3 worlds to give you shelter. Addressing Sri Ramakrishna, she said, O Master, please do not be offended with her. So even in the midst of a situation like that, she's been openly attacked, and she still had that deep disposition of Radhu as her child. She didn't flare up. She didn't abuse her back. She didn't say anything that was reactionary. She immediately looks at the shrine. She immediately looks to her ideal and prays, please forgive her. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's insane. This is a great method right here for how to deal with anger, how to deal with injustice. If someone is wronging you or attacking you in this way, or being rude to you in public, or shaming you in public, or anything along those lines, don't let the ego be concerned about itself, right? The ego wants to be concerned about the rudeness. It wants to be concerned about fixing up its reputation, maintaining its sense of honor, right? But the self has no need of that. You, as what you are, do not need any of that, right? Your concern is always for the other person. Oh my, how much damage they've done to themselves by thinking that way. Oh my, how they've offended someone they shouldn't have offended. So you see in the Divine Mother how deep this goes, that even in a split-second decision like this, Mother is still present and still calm and still full of insight. A few months earlier, Narayan Iyengar, a devotee from Bangalore, had spent some time with Holy Mother at Kualpara. He gave her 100 rupees per month for Radhu's expenses. As he was leaving Kualpara, he said, "Mother, whenever you need money, please let me know without the slightest hesitation." At Jairambati, her expenses increased a great deal. Swami Sharadananda had written to her that since he had to collect money from here and there, he found it difficult to send her monthly expenses on time. Holy Mother said to a disciple, "I think Sharat does not have much money to spare, or he would not have written that way. The other day, the devotee from Bangalore promised to send me money, but how can I write to him about it? Shall I disobey the Master's last injunction about not asking for money from others?" To Radhu, she said, "Look here, Radhu, I'm going to lose everything for your sake. The Master asked me not to stretch out my hand to anybody, even for a penny. He assured me that I shall never lack simple food and clothing. He admonished me, saying that if I begged even a pice, even a penny from any person, I would sell my head to that person in return." Right? A very good teaching. Live within your means, number one. And two, be very hesitant, be very cautionary about stretching out your hand to others for help, because that's the nature of the world. This world, money binds, right? Debt binds. And it's a significant way that we get caught up, that we get bound in the world, is through the borrowing of money, getting ourselves into debt. And that takes away our freedom like nothing else, to get yourself in that freedom and into that debt, into that bond, and your head is to the grindstone all the days of your life to pay for it, right? And so this is why Ramakrishna tells us, and why Swami Prabhupada was so very careful about what desires he fulfilled, about what plans he made, about what things he committed to. Understanding that any kind of debt or any kind of output, if it's not done with great sincerity and great discernment, that it can tie you up in karma for a long time. Give you something that will take your freedom for a long time. The mother knew that her life was coming to an end, so she began to work quickly to finish her mission. She had taken responsibility for Radhu after her birth, and now she decided to complete her duty toward her niece. Despite all of Radhu's shortcomings, the all-forgiving mother tried to protect her spiritual life by giving her initiation. Later, Radhu told Kamala Ghosh, wife of Vibhuti Ghosh of Bankura, I never said anything about initiation to the mother. One day during worship, the mother was seated on the asana, and suddenly she called me, Radhi, come here. When I went, she said, sprinkle Ganges water on your body. Take an asana and sit near me. Then she gave me a mantra. She then bowed down and said, addressing the master, I have done enough. Now you, please, look after her. Sister, I could not understand what the mother was talking about, but after that initiation, my health greatly improved. Afterward, Radhu said to Brahmachari Akshay Chaitanya, I knew the mother as my aunt. Did I know that she was not human, but a goddess? Saying this, Radhu fell down unconscious. So Radhu finally understands. But you see here, even mother has reached her wit's end and she's withdrawing. She needs to withdraw because she can't give anymore. She's to the limit. But what does she do? She doesn't complain to Radhu, right? She goes to her shrine and she tells the divine beloved, look, I can't do any more for this person. Please, you take charge of them. I put them in your hands. And she literally does that. She literally gives God the responsibility. And God steps in, takes that responsibility because she literally hands it over to him. It's a sincere prayer. And this is why we have to strive for that inner integrity in ourselves so that we can make these sincere prayers. So that when we ask God to take care of somebody, we can ask with a full heart and full sincerity, and we will stop worrying about that person at that point because of faith, because we know the divine beloved will take care of this, and we hand it over. And in worldliness, nobody believes that. In a worldly mind, nobody thinks that way, because a worldly mind is only egotistical, And even as spiritual people, we sometimes doubt it because ego always doubts those kinds of things, because ego needs to be the doer. Ego wants to be the doer. And so this surrender, the idea of surrendering, the idea of giving things to the divine to take care of, the ego reacts to that, sometimes pushes against that. But we see mother employing it, and Radhu herself saying it worked, saying, yes, my health improved. It was better. And it brought Radhu to an understanding of who the Divine Mother was, who Sri Sarada was. So much so that now when she realized, thinking back how she treated her, and realizing who she was, she now falls down unconscious. She faints in realization of what she's done. So the mother returns to Udbodhan. Udbodhan was her home in Calcutta. On the 13th of December, 1919, the mother's devotees observed her 66th birthday in Jairambati. Holy Mother had been suffering off and on from malaria, and as a result, her body became weak and emaciated. My goodness, there's a lot of sickness going around here. Poor mother. I guess so many people coming and going all the time, and being in the tropics, I suppose. When the local treatment failed, Sharadananda sent Swamis Atma Prakashananda and Bhumananda and Boshishwar Sen to bring Holy Mother back to Calcutta. It was decided to also bring Radhu and her mother Nalini, Maku, Mandakini, and Brahmachari Bharata. The mother left Jairambati on the 24th of February and arrived at Udbodhan House on the 27th of February 1920. Several doctors were engaged to treat Holy Mother. Although weak and fragile, she continued to accept a limited number of visitors. Slowly, she was withdrawing her mind from Radhu, though Bhanu had his full share of her love. Since Radhu could hardly look after her baby, Sarada took responsibility for the baby's care. Dr. Kanjilal gave notice that he would not treat the baby unless the child was kept away from his mother. One day, Holy Mother remarked, "She cannot even take care of herself. Why did God give her a child?" In Holy Mother's divine drama, Radhu played her part very well. The mother explained again and again the role of Radhu in her life. We should be indebted to Radhu in that she was responsible for keeping the mother on earth for such a long time. During the 20 years that Holy Mother's life was intertwined with hers, the Master fulfilled his unfinished mission through Holy Mother. She exemplified the ideal of a householder, the ideal of womanhood, and the motherhood of God. In her relationship with Radhu, Holy Mother also showed how to maintain equanimity of mind in spite of ill treatment and abuse. Holy Mother was the embodiment of patience, the embodiment of perseverance, of love and affection, compassion and dispassion, forgiveness and forbearance. She set an example for how one should live in this world under untoward circumstances. Through Radhu, Holy Mother also demonstrated the ideal of a karma yogi as described in the Bhagavad Gita. So that was a beautiful summary of what Mother is to us, just teaching us what the nature of love is, teaching us how to live in this world, to be constantly on the lookout for everyone's health, everyone's comfort, everyone's needs, trying to build up and lift up anywhere that we can, to always be looking for the good and remembering the good that others have done for us, not to remember the faults, not to hold the slights against others, but to be constantly handing things out to the shrine, constantly going to the shrine for the things that you need the most. God is your only refuge. This is what that looks like. That when you have personal troubles, your first intuition is to pray. Your first reaction is to pray for their well-being, for their forgiveness, for their strength, for their growth, for their improvement. This is what it is to be a child of the Mother, to learn this way of being in the world, not concerned for ourselves, not concerned for the petty concerns of egoism, but to connect at a level of the heart, seeing that oneness in each other, feeling the suffering when another suffers, feeling the pain when another is hurting, and sitting down not so much with the feeling that we have to fix things, because that's egoism, but sitting down with non-resistance and opening our hearts and hearing the struggle and feeling the pain with the other person, and maybe just holding their hand, maybe just embracing them, maybe just sitting silently with them. No need to come up or make up an answer. Just be with them. And if some inspiration comes for an answer, then by all means, but make sure it comes through an inspiration and not through the egoistic desire to help, right? A sense of being the better person. So this is the Divine Mother, and we see that how through and through she was a pure manifestation of love of God as the Divine Mother, and that all of these people around her, she was coordinating and working out their betterment all the time. This is Holy Mother.